Today we're going to look at everything to do with the inside flag. What is it, how to use it, the pros and the cons. Some people love it, some people hate it, but you're going to know exactly how to use it, when to use it, and why to use it by the end of this video. So we're going to look at the intricacies and the drill work for an inside flag, but firstly, what is it? Really simply, it's kicking one leg in between my body and the wall, creating stability to free up a limb for a limb. That's the inside flag. We're going to show you today how to use it, when to use it, why to use it, and when not. This climb was really good because for my height, I could make that first move, and I had the option of stepping through and reaching up to that. And that's a legitimate reason to do that step through technique, but it loaded my hand more. Here, I can be underneath the hold, my arms straight, and then I can do the next move exactly the same. So it's really speedy and efficient. What we're going to look at now is the orientation of the foothold, when, how, and why to use it. Okay, the first thing that's really important to note is that the inside flag relies on one foothold. So we'll talk about the orientation in a second, but I'm not using two footholds. If there are two footholds available, then potentially the drop knee is going to be better, and I'll link that video and the drills in the description, and also link it to the screen. So let's talk about the inside flag. The first thing is that it does rely on circumstance. Circumstance being slightly more forgiving handholds, potentially more orientated to side pulls, or holds that have kind of forgiving radius. So I mean that I have this hold and I could use it underneath, but I could also use it as a side pull and maybe even above it. So really kind of forgiving holds. They don't need to be massive jugs, but in difference to maybe a crimp here, and as my body gets higher, my center of gravity gets higher, and I'm flagging, I'm going to lose that optimal direction of force. So that's the first thing that's really important. The second thing is the orientation of the foothold. Now, I'm going to create a drill here, and I've got this side pull. Below the side pull, the plumb line is probably the optimal position. I say probably, that's my opinion, and I'll show you why. So if I'm using this yellow, for example, I'm underneath the handhold, I don't really want to pull, I kick in between, and I reach up to that blue. So it's efficient. I can push off the wall, it keeps my hips in. If I push that foot further out, then I can still do it. I probably have to use my hips for more generation. It's a little bit harder. If I push out even further, then I'm gonna have to pull, then it becomes inefficient. So the plumb line is the best position. Likewise, if I push the foothold back and I'm down here, I'll do it on this blue, I'm in a knot, and it's going to be really hard. So the plumb line or thereabouts is the optimal position for the inside flag and foot. Exciting news, Rúngne has added free ship bundles to their website, allowing you to get more for your money. I haven't taken these clothes off. Well, I have. I've got different versions, maybe 6 or 7 of these t-shirts. This is the Sloper upgrade tee, and it's incredible. I'm used to wearing Lululemon, which, if you don't know, it's really good high quality athletic wear, and this is just as good. It feels so nice to climb in and just casually. And these are the harness pants. I wasn't sure of them at first, but now I'm a convert. I've worn them exclusively. Josh was telling me how much he liked them. Magnus loves them, and I was dubious, but you can climb. They're so stretchy. They're even a little bit waterproof. Like if you, for example, dribble a little bit like me, it just runs off. They're actually really good. The beauty of this, and as Alex always tells me, my wife, you look good, you feel good, you climb good, you're confident.
Also, as part of the Black Friday sale until the 2nd of December, if you check out using our normal discount code, ROAP, you're going to get a massive 25% discount on top of the free shipping bundles.
Okay, the next topic to talk about with the orientation of the foothold is height. So right there I used a low foothold. The beauty of that is I have all of this space where my body curves away from the wall to allow this foot to step through. The higher the foot, the more acute that angle gets, so it's harder. So I'm going to demonstrate that. What I'm going to do is do one move into this blue and then move above it, and I'll show you kind of the orientation on the second move. So here we go, same first move. So I'm going to use this yellow flag And now I'm going to use this yellow high. So here I can push, I can drive, and I can reach. And it allows my body to extend. However, if I use a higher foot, let's say on that first move, I go right up here. Now, I've got a small gap now, so to push through is really hard. And then it's going to probably make me pull. So that would be a scenario I'd probably use a back flag or the outside flag. That's another video. So it's really important to play around with the height of the foot. Lower creates more space and allows me to drive. So here I can really push off that foot to gain height, and that's what we're going to look at next. Okay, now we've got to piece this first move together. So I've got my holds, I've got good orientation that it's forgiving, I can keep a straight arm, which is really important. The whole point of this technique is efficiency. I've got the plumb line foothold beneath it, so this yellow. So what I'm trying to do is gain height. Now if I stay front on, that's what's going to happen, and I'll pull. That's the whole purpose of this, is how to control this other limb and gain efficiency. So in this same position, I'm just going to kick that leg through. But what I want you to look at is the driving force, the legs, the hips, and the foot. So I'll talk through it. So I'm placing this right foot here, inside edge. We'll look at that in a second. I'm going to kick the leg through and stand up and then reach. What's really important to note is my arm's going to be straight. I'm pushing through my foot, so the ankle rises, and I'm kicking that leg through whilst having a straight leg. We're going to look at what happens when none of those things happen. So the first thing I talked about there was the position of the foot, the inside edge. Now, pivoting is a crucial technique of the step through drill, any step through outside flag drills. And we'll link a video about pivoting in the description and in this video. So what I'll get you to do, Alex, if you come in, is we're going to firstly look at this foothold. Now, I use the inside flag. Super important because that's going to position my hips in line with the wall. So it also allows space, so everything is pointing to the right to keep my left hip in, because I'm reaching up with my left hand. So in that position, what happens if my foot is front on? And you'll see. So if I position my foot front on, I'm going to have a lot of space between my hip and the wall, so it'll be easy to step through, but it's really hard to again get my hip against the wall. So it'll encourage me to pull. Really important. We see it all the time when people try to inside flag, their foot is front on. Remember, foot front on, knee front on, bum out. So I'm out from the wall. If I were to do that, then I'd pivot at the same time. So if my foot's front on and I need to do an inside flag, I pivot and push off the flagging leg to keep my left hip close to the wall for my left hand to reach up. So we've talked about ankle articulation before, positioning. It has a massive knock-on effect to my whole body. If I have low heels, it's like this. It pushes my bum away from the wall. If I have high heels and push through my toe, it's going to have a positive effect, bring my hips closer to the wall. Same thing here. So next point to note is if I've got a really low heel and I'm stepping through, you can see it collapses my leg. So I'm more likely to pull again. So it's really important that you're pushing through the toe. That doesn't mean pointing like ballet, but applying the appropriate pressure. So I get that toe and I'm pushing through it. If you look through, it's a positive heel. It's higher than the foothold. Next thing to talk about is legs, bums and core. Super important in this. Straight lines are really important. So we're looking at a triangle. I've got this handhold, this foot, I'm pointing my toe like I said. This is pushing against the wall. If I collapse those features, then I'm probably going to sag more from the wall, more weight's going to come onto the arm. That's what we're going to look at now. So same position, I stand up tall, straight legs, I reach up into this position. Great. And this is an overhang. I think it's like 30 degrees or something. But what happens if I collapse those things, and it's harder to get my hip closer to the wall, it's harder to use my hips, therefore I'll pull. The next thing is the bum. When I'm at that top point, it's really important to tense my bum, really squeeze it, and that's going to keep me in line with the wall, mirroring the contour of the wall. Really important. So driving with the leg. The next straight line is the flagging leg. Super important to flag appropriately. If I flag it really far, that could work for a move out wide. If I flag it less far, it'll work for a higher move, but it's a straight line. It has to be pushing against the wall. If it's in the air, you'll see my body weight will fall away from the wall. So I'm here, I'm flagging the air, and there's nothing to create stability. The flagging leg pushes against the wall to create that triangle and stability. Next thing is core. Touched on it slightly there, but it's using momentum. Alex did a video not long ago, it's actually our most viewed video, about how to generate momentum with our center of gravity, our hips. We can really use it effectively in this scenario. So I'm gonna do a couple of moves this time. So I'll do it to the green, blue, I'll do it to the green. And it's really important that when I use this, I've got this empty space so I can flick with my hips. Same thing again, here I can flick with my hips. So it's a really effective move at generating momentum. If I don't use my hips at all, then it can be a static drill, but it's going to be less efficient, more weight's going to be on my hands. So I'll be paused. If there's no hips involved, I'll be here, and it'll be a more strenuous, really core intensive to do that move, rather than creating momentum and really flicking with your hips from the bottom. Okay, just to demonstrate the hips and momentum a little bit more, so efficiency, I'm going to do the drill twice. One, statically, which is really important to learn the movement, create muscle memory. The second one is to generate momentum. It can be subtle, or if the move's bigger, it could be a bigger movement with your hips. So let's look at it now. We'll just do the first two moves, but the first one, I'm low, I'm on the yellow, inside flag, I push, and I reach up. Foot high, I stand up, I push, and I reach high. So it's a great drill. That's how I teach it. I teach my clients one move by move, and they'll make mistakes, they'll pull, and you drill it out of them. It's really important. Now we're going to do it with a bit of momentum. So say for example, I'm on a board, or I need to generate the momentum, maybe the holds are slightly worse, but I'm in the same position. I'm going to use my hips to come through. Same again. I'm going to place the foot and use my hips. So I'm generating a lot of momentum by thrusting. It makes it more efficient. Earlier on, I talked about what happens if the foothold is further away, and I have to use momentum because to do it statically would be impossible. So sometimes, catch my breath, using momentums is more important, but sometimes you may have to do a really delicate inside flag to maybe match a finish holder in a competition climb, and you have to be really delicate, so using a lot of momentum would be inappropriate. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the drill in its entirety. If you have access to a spray wall like this, perfect, but most of the time I teach this in gyms, climbing centers, where I just go onto the rope section or a bouldering section where there's so many holds. The alternative is a board. I often do it on a tension board or a kilter board. You can even do it on the moon board. The important point to make, which I haven't really even spoken about yet, is the angle. We're going to look at the drill in its entirety. This is actually, I said 30 degrees, this is 25 degrees. You'll typically see an inside flag used more when it's less steep. In a roof you can still use it, but when it starts to become steep, like 40, 50, 60 degrees, you'll probably see it less often. The back flag, the outside flag is used all the time. We'll look at that in another video. But this drill, I'm going to show you kind of how to create it yourself. All you're looking for initially to learn the moves are positive holds. Now jugs are great for this, they're really forgiving. And a jug that allows that different angle of approach is the best, it's the most forgiving, rather than a full side pull or a downward jug. But here I've chosen footholds that are basically on the plumb line. We talked about this. The blue handhold, the yellow foot is a couple of bolts over. The next handhold is the green, and I've got the hold directly underneath it. So I'll talk you through it whilst I'm doing it. So I'm on the black, inside flag, I go thrust with my hips, stand up with my leg, my heel is high and I'm pushing against the wall. I unwind, so that relies on the pivot. My foot comes high. I've got all this potential energy in my hips now. I'm going to stand up, my heel is low at the moment. I'm going to push through, point through my toes. The foot goes against the wall to keep my hips in. I unwind, pivot, place the foot. This arm is okay to pull, this one is fully relaxed. I've got all this potential energy, I flag, I cross through, I reach to a side pull. I twist, foothold basically underneath it, I use my hips, thrust, reach the finish. One thing I want to address is something that Dave MacLeod has touched on in his video. We'll link it in the description below. But he talked about why he doesn't like using the inside flag for a legitimate reason, but we didn't really kind of touch on exactly why. So we've talked about optimal direction of force, these side pulls or these forgiving jugs. They don't have to be jugs, they could be edges, but the angle is what's important. Dave MacLeod in his video shows an example where he's got a crimp and he has to cross through and he's using the flag. He basically couldn't do it. We're going to talk about why. We touched on it earlier. So say for example I've got this crimp here. It's a pretty good crimp and I'll use anything for my other hand. So if I flag, do the inside flag, I've got the sloper, I flag, I can still do it. And it's absolutely possible. It does obviously put a little bit more weight in and it really relies your hips being mirroring the contour of the wall, really in, so you hit them. But what I'm going to show is if you have a higher foot, which we've seen is possible with the inside flag, it becomes much, much harder. So Alex, if you come around here, so it's sideways on, I'm going to use this crimp. It's pretty good. But if I use a higher foot for an inside flag, say for example this orange, what's going to happen, I mean this is hard, genuinely hard, is my body weight is going to come away from the wall. There's this small space. What that's doing is pushing my center of gravity away from the wall and making my elbow rise. So one, I'm pulling, trying really hard. Two, I've lost optimal direction of force, which is here. If my elbow is rising, okay, I can rely on a kinked wrist or a half crimp to pull into this crimp. But if that were flat and it didn't have an in-cut, then say for example this black, I'm only going to have a certain amount of time or space before my hand pops, which is why Dave was suggesting that it's not the best technique all of the time. And he's completely right. Like we said at the beginning, it's circumstantial. If you come to this position, like that first climb we showed at the beginning of this video, and I've got the perfect recipe for a foothold directly below my hand, and I can reach up, and it's efficient, it avoids a double foot match or a foot match. Yes, it's the technique to use, but sometimes there are, and often there are better techniques to use. Okay, now we're at basically 45 degrees or 46 degrees, same thing. I'm only going to do the first two moves, but it's a lot steeper now, so foot's in. And it's okay, it definitely becomes much more core intensive. This yellow foot is a sloper. So if I lift my heel too high, I start to sag and I can feel my foot really kind of, I say, slipping away a little bit. So it becomes harder. If you go into a steep roof, still possible, but this is on jugs. Make these handholds smaller, make the footholds less forgiving, and it becomes a much different proposition. And I'd probably opt for a different technique, being the classic outside edge and flag like this, which definitely becomes an easier tool. The difference being, if I had my right foot on the start hold, the inside flag is a great technique to use, rather than have to match my foot and flag out, and then the step through becomes quite exaggerated. But both are really useful techniques. The inside flag typically is used at lesser angles. As always, a massive thank you to Rúngne for supporting us in this channel. That benefit goes on to you.
So please use the code ROAP, R-O-A-P, to get an extra 25% discount.
As well as the free shipping on those bundles. And you can see the link in the description below. So click on it, go to the website, buy anything you want, get the discount on the bundles, and also 15% off using the code ROAP. And that's it. That's everything you need to know about the inside flag. So take your time to digest it. Maybe come back and watch it a few times. I know a lot of you do that with our drill videos, but the inside flag is such an important tool in your toolbox. You can use it when appropriate and not when it's not. Simple as that. But a massive thank you to the Climbing Collective. This is their Longmont location. I actually come here maybe 3-4 times a week to go into this room, to go on the Kilter Moon and this spray wall. It's a really popular gym. They've just had a competition and the problems are amazing too. So massive thank you to them. A massive thank you to you guys for supporting us and watching it. Please click like and subscribe, and we're back soon with the outside flag video.